Welcome, I'm Lynn JT, hypnobirthing practitioner, and I help moms like you to birth like a boss. So today we're going to cover something really fundamental, the one strategy that you need to follow in order to achieve the calm, powerful birth that you want. Now this is part 1 of a 7-video series, so to get the full video series plus all the resources we'll be talking about, including pregnancy self-care tools, then go to lynnjt.com or just click on the link below. Right, let's dive right in. This is the strategy to achieve the birth you want. You need just a simple strategy, but first understand that it's not about what happens. You see, a good birth plan will help you prepare for all eventualities and understand all your choices. Now, we can help, we've got other videos on that, but right here, more vitally, we're talking about how you deal with what does happen. You can't always foresee what will actually happen, but the strategy will tell you how to deal with it. The goal of this strategy is to unlock your primal potential to give birth with ease, the way all other mammals do. Every other mammal just gives birth with ease, and there's no fear or there's no anxiety around that. And you, my dear, are a mammal. An overthinking, highly intellectual biped, yes, but at the core, you are a mammal. And you just need to awaken that primal animal inside who already knows how to birth like a boss. So this strategy is to reach that confident zone where you allow your instincts to guide you. That's what it is. It's that becoming that animal that just follows instinct, that already knows what to do, when to do it, and how. Now, equally important, the complete strategy is to keep you in that zone. So you might have seen some incredibly serene birth videos, or just go to any farm and watch an animal give birth. Now, all those mammals, bipeds, they were all in the zone, and that's what we're trying to achieve. So what are you expecting birth to be like? Something like this? This is what we see in the movies. Here, the gorgeous Charlize Theron in the comedy Knocked Up. She's terrified, angry, and in pain. She wants to hit her birth partner, who doesn't have the first clue about how to help her. Now, this is what our friends tell us happened to them. It's what the horror stories, the fear-mongering that we hear so often. So it's what we come to expect. And unfortunately, that expectation is what manifests itself in our bodies. And that prophecy becomes our own reality. That becomes your birth story. And that version of your birth story sucks. Sorry, it really does. So we just don't want that. Let's say no thanks. And to avoid it, you need to understand, first of all, how this self-fulfilling prophecy works, how this vicious cycle of fear, tension, pain works. In real life, so many women fall into this fear, tension, pain cycle. Now, just think about this. Remember the last time you had an injection or a blood test? So that's pretty recent if you're pregnant. And what did the phlebotomist say to you? Or what did you already know to do? Maybe you sat calm, relaxed, you let your arm go floppy. Maybe you looked away and talked about the weather or something. But you might have instinctively taken a deep breath and let it out slowly and tried to relax. And if you did all that, then it would have been over before it even began. No trauma, hardly, any discomfort, all done. Well, when I was a child, I used to have a real fear of needles. I just thought it was the worst thing that could happen. The thought of it would make me shiver. I would have nightmares the night before. I'd be sweating and crying and pre-living all the pain before we even got to the waiting room where I would, have to go and have an inoculation. Now, by the time I'm in the chair, I'm screaming and kicking my mom, who has to hold me down. And I'm tense as a brick. My muscles in my arm are just so hard. And I'm kicking and screaming, and I want to punch that poor doctor who has no choice but to jam the needle in really hard. And the pain then is incredible, and it's all I can think about. So even after, I'll be sweating, shaking, feeling really sorry for myself, like I've experienced the worst trauma ever. And my arm is actually bruised and bleeding more than it would be if I just relaxed. Now, you see, the fear is what made my muscles tense up. and the needle had to force its way through, damaging more tissue than it needed to. So that's just a really simple example of the fear, tension, pain, damage that happened to me because I had that fear, and that misconception might not have happened to you because you didn't. So it's just about that mindset. And see, for labor and birth, it's okay. It's a bit more complex version of that, but the cure is in the understanding. So let's shine some light on some of these elements. So fear, first in this cycle, you can see here, fear equals tension equals pain. So fear, where does that fear come from? We've seen it's from the fear mongering, the stories that you hear. So is this your starting point? Either you have already had a traumatic, painful, horrible birth experience before, and you're scared that your second one is going to be the same or worse, or you've just heard the horror stories, you've lived this through someone else's experience. In any case, for all of us, fear comes mainly from what we either do not know, do not understand fully, understand why it happened to you. Now, fear has a physiological effect on us. What does it do to you on a cellular level? How does that affect your birth canal, your vagina, and your pain levels, your experience of pain? So we know that fear equals tension. It's going to tense all of that up. Now that tension you get because you sense a threat, and your blood then automatically, your brain automatically floods your body with stress hormones. And when stress hormones take over, two things happen. One, you automatically shut off your natural pain relief hormones. Yes, you heard me right. You do actually have, your body produces natural pain relief hormones, which are incredibly powerful. Now, I will tell you much more about that later and how to tap into them. But just note that when the stress hormones are unleashed, your natural pain relief hormones cannot also be released at the same time. So it's one or the other. So they just stop. So you're not getting that natural pain relief. Then two, you tense your muscles because you go into that fight or flight mode, and you're ready like a trapped animal, the way I was in that doctor's chair. And you can't help it. It's like when you flinch, it's a reflex, and that's just going to happen when you're scared. Now, the cervix and the uterus, let's look at that as a multi-layered muscle mechanism. That is perfectly designed to open up like a blooming flower, or I like to see it actually as a drawstring purse. I can tell you more about the actual physiology, the anatomy of the cervix uterus, and you'll see it's actually like a drawstring purse. It's an incredible mechanism. And when it's left to work naturally in the right conditions, it just opens up beautifully without tearing. Now, in the stress conditions, it's like a muscle, like any other, and it's going to fight to close back up. It's going to tense up. Fear signals that it's not safe to birth here, so it won't want to release baby. It's going to go into fight or flight mode. And when that happens, you want to run away. Your blood supply is taxed away from the pelvis where you need it from baby, and it goes away to your arms and legs instead. That's just the fear response. You cannot control that. And in your blood carries your oxygen. So your oxygen also gets taxed away from where it's most needed. Therefore, you get suboptimal muscle efficiency where you need that muscle to be working in your cervix and uterus, which means that your labor progress is slowed, and you'll start hearing things like failure to progress. That's a really horrible, unhelpful thing to hear, failure to progress. And even worse, though your labor might actually be stalling, even worse, it can even regress if you're under a lot of duress. Now, the cervix can reverse the opening and actually close back up a bit, or even a lot. Now, these are powerful muscles that are working in overdrive when they're in this fight-flight mode. So there will be pain and exhaustion for you. And you might be pushed towards having interventions at this stage because you can't go on forever like this. Your birth is not supposed to be super long, actually, when it's done right and in the right conditions. You might hear most people having had a good birth experience. It's very, very fast. Now, more importantly here, your blood is also baby's blood, therefore their oxygen supply. Now, if all this happens like a domino effect, then there's going to be a suboptimal level of oxygen for the baby, and that can lead to possible distress. Now, this further slows down your labor progress. There's more pain, more exhaustion, more fear. That's going to lead to possibly needing more intervention, or at least you're going to be pushed towards this. So that is the cycle. Your fear equals tension equals resistance. Your resistance is what is the regression, the pain, exhaustion, and likely need for intervention. So resistance is what causes the pain. Your cervix isn't thin, the uterus doesn't do its job easily, doesn't open up wide naturally, but the baby has got to come out one way or another. And so it will be forced and there will be excessive pain. That's what leads to the tearing and the bruising. Now, on another note, once you go down the whole induction route, because if you're in this cycle for too long, once you go down the induction route, that's a whole other ball game. You can't control, because it's not your natural hormones anymore that are guiding the labor. They're synthetic hormones, and that creates forced contractions, which come on fast and strong, and you just don't have time to adjust the way you would if this is a natural birth without being induced. And then you have time to adjust. And when you don't, then that's what leads to the fear, the loss of control, and then the tension and the pain. So this is the cycle that you want to avoid. And then that will further lead to more suffering, not just the physical, but the emotional trauma that comes with intervention and tissue damage afterwards. Now, 6 in 8 women will experience baby blues afterwards, and I think a lot of the contributing facts are how you actually gave birth in the first place, how traumatic it was. And 1 in 8 will go into postnatal depression, and there is definitely a lot to be said about how the actual birth affected you. But anyway, this is what happens for a lot of people who are super anxious about birth, who aren't fully educated on all the ins and outs of how things work. I'm not just talking about a basic antenatal course. I'm really thinking about how nature has designed you to open up, not just the medicalized version. So I'm here to tell you that there is a better way. What we just discussed before, that's not what Mother Nature intended for you. That is not your design. So your vagina is elastic, and the fibers are designed to stretch and retract afterwards. So it's meant to open and close. Now, the key is to give birth under the right conditions and the right mindset, and that's the strategy that we're talking about. Now, I haven't invented this, and no one invented this technique. This is something we all have inside us. The thing is that as modern women, as overly thinking, highly intellectual bipeds that we are, we have forgotten how to be the animal and how to just listen to our intuition. It's so simple, yet it's so hard for us to get back in touch with that, because we're so out of our natural state. And we have lost touch with nature, our instincts, and that primal brain inside us, where those secrets are encoded. So let's redefine your preconceptions right now. And let's reverse engineer that horrible cycle. So imagine this: a peaceful, powerful, quick birth. Now, when you have the tools to be in the calm cycle and not the fear, tension, pain cycle, you can have a peaceful, powerful birth. So this is our endpoints, where we want to be. Now, we've seen that the mind-body connection means that your thoughts will affect your body directly on a cellular level. Negative or positive thoughts will self-manifest and materialize in the body. You will either tense up or you will be able to relax. So allowing your body to be able to relax is that key that leads to that ability to birth in a peaceful way. So this is highly understood by top athletes. Have you ever heard of just positive mental attitude and all that relaxation that they do before big games, before a run? And you see them really focusing inside, going inside, not listening to the crowds or anyone else. Swimmers even come into the pools with the headphones on, they're in their zone, and they've built up this positive mental attitude. They have done hours and hours of visualization and relaxation. These are fundamental lessons that they learn in sports psychology that coaches use all the time to get athletes to reach their goals and also to beat their own records, to be able to do things that they might have thought beyond their physical abilities, but still be able to reach. And to get to that point, to be able to do so much physical exertion, to be able to, in your case, birth, what comes before that is the deep relaxation. It's getting into that zone. So it's getting into that confidence. That's what creates it. So confidence needs to replace the fear that was at the top of the cycle, that the first one that we saw. It needs to replace the fear and the self-doubt there at the top. So to do that, we need to de-brainwash you of all the myths and the misconceptions, the misunderstandings and those false expectations that you have, and rebalance your knowledge bank with helpful birth education. Now, we also need to stop negative input that feeds the fear that's already there, because there's already going to be some stuff there. And what we don't want is that increasing and that fear pattern in your mind being reinforced by more negative stories. And we need to replace that with positive input that is practical, and input that is empowering, with real tools, real scripts, real things that you can use so it's tangible and your brain will accept it. So this is the amazing, powerful, efficient system. This is the strategy that you actually already have in place. You just have to allow yourself to enter this cycle, and you have the power inside to do so. It's really exciting. I love telling this part because it's like being told that you have superhero powers, that you have special abilities that you're discovering for the first time, and it really is. You're able to do so much more than you think you can. If you were an animal, you wouldn't even be here. You would just do this naturally, literally mindlessly. You wouldn't be overthinking this, and you would just naturally go into that cycle. But humans have managed to totally medicalize birth. Yes, for good reason, obviously, we've had to, and it's amazing, and it's saved so many lives. But we've done it to the point that we talk about it to the point that we perceive pregnancy, labor, and birth as a condition, and to the point that it's seen as an affliction even. And our overactive, paranoid minds are the problem. That's what it is. It's our crazy imagination and projections into a future that we prefer to view as scary than anything else. Fortunately, our minds are also the solution. And that's why hypnobirthing has been brought in, and is required to make you see more truths about natural birth, to bring back the animal inside you so that you are empowered again to give birth the way nature intended. Now, of course, as I said, I'm not dismissing medical care. When it is needed, it is amazing, and it's really needed. If mom or baby has a condition, then yes, absolutely, things need to be monitored, and you might need interventions when there are emergencies. But still, in the first place, if everything is good, if you don't have any conditions, if everything's been checked out, then there's no need to project into so much worry. And all of this still applies. This strategy still applies. It's not about fighting medical staff here. It's about creating the right environment for yourself, staying calm, and in the right cycle, this strategy, throughout any procedures that you might need. And that's why it's still important to prepare fully in this way, even if you've planned a C-section. That way you're armed to deal with any situation, whether you're doing that with a full medical team, if you're having a home birth, still with this strategy, you can birth in a taxi, in a lift, with a midwife, just a birth partner, a random stranger, and even completely by yourself. You don't actually need anyone there. You need, if everything is going well, and most of the time it will continue to go well, and it's the fear that tips us into that fear, tension, pain, and then requiring intervention. And that's generally why intervention is needed. Ask yourself why for so many millennia, babies have been born with no intervention before, and still do today in countries that are less medicalized than ours. And you can do all this, and you can do it all so well. And the results are amazing. When you are in this strategy, when you reach the zone and you maintain yourself in it, your contractions are easier, they are shorter, they are more efficient, and therefore fewer total contractions are had. The total labor is shorter. Everything's faster and efficient, and the whole time you can stay relaxed and in control, knowing what is happening, seeing the end. And that's what that strategy is about. Now, that's the bigger picture. So let's just resume that. We know that, yes, medical is scary, but that is for medical conditions. And if you have a medical condition, you just stay monitored with it. All of this still applies. You still have to stay calm. The things you cannot control, fine. What you can control is how you feel inside, how you let yourself, how you let your mind stay calm, as opposed to going to overdrive and into anxiety. I can't even go into all the benefits of natural childbirth here, but they too are overlooked and not really pushed as much. I'm not saying that you absolutely have to have a vaginal birth, but do know that having a drug-free vaginal birth does allow you to have an alert drug-free baby who is then able to better breastfeed directly after birth. And they also have an improved gut flora, which is key for healthy adult immune systems later in them. And more studies are confirming better brain developmental outcomes. And also remember that you will be fully present in drug-free, so that you can experience what could be really the most incredible joy you ever have in life. And also you'll have a faster recovery without having undergone drugs or surgery. So what we are going to do in the next parts of the series is to bust through 3 myths about labor. So have the strategy, you're doing everything to keep calm in that calm cycle. And so these next parts are giving you what you need to know about some misconceptions. There are so many, but we're going to bust 3 major ones. And also I want to give you 3 keystone tools. So we're going to do 3 myths about labor and 3 keystone tools, like on birthing instinct training and building your confidence and being able to access relaxation through guided meditation. So that's what we will be doing next. I hope that you've enjoyed this first tutorial. It's really the crucial start to you taking that step towards a changed mindset and actually opening your eyes to what birth really is all about, and how wonderful it is, how it's something that you should be looking forward to as opposed to fearing. So click in the link in the comments box below in the description box so you can get access to the full video series and the downloads of the resources that I'll be giving out throughout this series as well. All right, I'll see you then.